Boogaloo, and welcome back to Star Trek Lower Decks Season 5, Episode 6 of Gods and Angles. Also known as justification for quintuple checking the spelling of all of my thumbnails and video titles with Paramount Plus before starting. I have a bit of a sore throat today. Hopefully that doesn't affect the stream. Lower Decks usually doesn't go too long. And I've got some vegan oat eggnog in a Blitzo mug, as everyone should have. Happy 61st anniversary of Doctor Who. So naturally, we are doing the Star Trek live stream to celebrate, and not the Doctor Who one tomorrow. But no, of Gods and Angles. This was just a return to form for me. This was absolutely a return to form. I've complained about some of the previous episodes kind of being all right at best. Literally, before watching this episode, I was even kind of thinking how I might phrase, how it was kind of time for Lower Decks to end, because we haven't really been moving forward any of the characters. It doesn't really feel like there's an overarching plot line beyond the one they've created for just this season. But this one fixed all of that. We're moving, both our sort of main characters, Boimler and Mariner, in the other order, forward. Just from little things, they're all kind of bigger things, but on the smaller end, to just finally addressing Boimler's behavior. With copying his mirror universe self. So I probably will have to pause for drinks like that. Copying his mirror universe self, owning the data pad, and, moving that forward. And then the new introduction, which I really love, and I think it was last episode I said would be lacking, is the introduction of, was it Ollie? The demigod character, as sort of just a foil to how much Mariner has grown. I love that. Even though, as I said, I think I complained, not even as a complaint, that there was a missed opportunity in one of the previous episodes, I don't remember the character, but potentially show the growth of Boimler or Mariner. Actually, I think it was the vacation one, where you could have shown Boimler's growth by having him not join the Admiral. This is exactly that. Just showing Mariner's growth and just making us realize how far she's come as an officer. But obviously still is her own person, still in the Mariner way. She's generally more carefree. She's a lot looser with her crew. But it is her crew now. It's her subordinates. And she has plenty of moments. She's like, Ensign, stop! It's just telling off her subordinates because she has this responsibility. You can see it right there on her pit. I'd love to go back to the episode where they promote Mariner to try and get her off the ship. Because, this far into the series, that would probably just seem straight up out of character. She's grown so much. And I won't be devastated if we never see Ollie again. I feel like we're kind of setting up a relationship there. At the end of the bridge, she literally sits down to talk to Ollie and be like, no, I'm gonna help you through what I went through. And I'd love to see that explored in the next 4 episodes. I wouldn't be too surprised if she never really shows up before. Jennifer wasn't too big, when they were dating. T'Lyn is already an extra member of the cast, and they've been pretty sidelined. I don't know, they have a habit of doing this, Lower Decks. They kill Shax, and so they introduce a new security officer. Then, 2 episodes later, Shax is back, and the security officer does nothing. They get rid of Tendi, they introduce T'Lyn, and then 2 episodes later, they bring Tendi back, so T'Lyn doesn't really do anything. I don't really have problems with the characters. Just Lower Decks, especially for its runtime, is a little bit packed. I don't expect them to introduce a major character to do a whole lot with. Honestly, even kind of other 2 main characters, Rutherford and Tindy, have been rather sidelined, is evidenced by the fact I'm struggling to find a shot of them together. There was one, technically, with Tindy hiding behind a bookshelf. There you go. They're together. Yeah, you might think it's a complaint, because I love Tindy, and Rutherford, he's good. He's just cool to have around. I don't really have a complaint, though, because I feel neither of them have had an arc for a while, excluding, of course, Tindy's cliffhanger arc that gets wrapped up in, 3 episodes. And so, clearly, I mean, if you've been following this season, I'm much more interested in the characters who are actively developing, and that's just not Tindy or Rutherford. Although, don't get me wrong, this still image of Tindy is still a pleasure to see. I was interested, though. I mean, you even kind of have the subversion at the end, which is great for a comedy. But of Boimler seemingly learning to copy his Mirror Universe self and being rewarded for that, which I'm sure will probably come back in him. I mean, I don't think Lower Decks will end on it's better to copy others. I don't know why Rutherford is so excited, because his Mirror Universe self had to learn lessons from our Rutherford. But no, I'm sure this will build up, come crashing down. He might even have some realization, like, oh, the real friends are the friends we made along the way. I know I said the real friends, but I am interested to see where it goes, because it's finally moving forward. And we only have so many episodes. It's, episode 6? So, yeah, 4 more episodes left of the whole series. Mariner, I think, is rapidly approaching a solid conclusion. I mean, I think introducing this dynamic of Mariner and Ollie, you could get another season or so out of Mariner now, using her newfound everything, confidence, self-assuredness, or comfort in being an officer with this authority, bringing up someone who was like her. Because I also love how this episode, exactly why I said we all get Ollie is a Mariner foil. That's made very obvious. Even the characters recognize it. And Mariner's like, I'm going to basically fix her. I'm going to make her me. And then we have the great twist of, well, no, she's not me. Like, obviously, she's got a lot in common. She loves the brig, even though secretly not liking it, I'm sure. Very similar position to Mariner was in. But I would be interested in seeing another season or so of Mariner kind of balancing that and exploring those issues of helping somebody through issues they have that are similar to yours. I mean, it's even like a family issue, which was part of what Mariner had, like not wanting to become her mom and all that. And having similar symptoms, I guess you'd call them, similar effects on their lives. But Ollie and Mariner are clearly very different people, expressed partially just in Ollie's an engineer and Mariner's in command. But also, they're just, people are different. And so kind of balancing Mariner's experience with what she went through that's very similar with who Ollie is in the person. I think there's easily a season or 2 to explore in that. And I would be very surprised if that's not what they were setting up with Ollie. And it is nice to get more mixing up of the dynamics. Because I think we've fallen back into the more comfortable Rutherford, Tindy, Mariner, Boimler. I don't know, I'd actually have to sit down and think about them. But I don't think we've had many mixing up of the formulas, which is something they tried a season or 2 ago? I don't remember which one. What even, is this 5? Yeah, it's season 5. You think I'd know that by now. I think I will transition over into the scene by scene now. Actually, no, one more broad topic. Even though it was fairly small, I can't show that on stream. Even though it was a very small detail, where's a picture of the big fights? I did like that it was the traditional, peace talk setup, but with the photonic beings, sorry. of course, Star Trek is usually very focused on the humanoid aliens, and we've, built that into the lore. We've justified why there are so many humanoids very well. I don't think that should change. But Starfleet also, not Starfleet, Star Trek has still a wide variety of, non traditional humanoid entities. I mean, the gods, I don't know what we call them. Zeus and Apollo has been established. We've brought them back. We actually have a lot. We got Q's name dropped in this episode. We've had a few, photonic beings living in nebulas. And as someone who's been playing a lot of Factorio, the spheres look a lot like Vulcanus, the planet in Factorio. But I really did appreciate actually having both sides be these nebulas that cross. It really kind of gives the feel of an universe that's active outside, not just the Federation and the major players of the galaxy, but the whole world of corporeal humanoids who have to travel around in starships. Sure, they were a little bit one note, but they weren't the focus of the episodes. It is still a comedy. It's a lot of more basic stuff. I don't find just, spheres hate angles and the cubes hate spheres and curves too funny. But, you get some light humor about, the sphere that's not glowing, and I think there's enough in there. That, it is a successful kind of comedy edge. It was also pretty obvious, around here, once the sphere mentioned that they both lost kids, that it was a Romeo and Juliet story. But I don't care. It's, this was just the set dressing to the plot, really. This was just set dressing to the plot, so I don't care too much. A basic plot is absolutely fine if you're dealing with more than the plot, which Lower Decks should be. Lower Decks is great at its character work, and this is what this episode was, moving the plots forward. And, of course, just being what Lower Decks is, it's good at extracting comedy from these basic Star Trek tropes, or even presenting unique spins and unique perspectives, even if it's not the kind of show that will really explore them too far. Again, I'll always remember season 1's, that's Starfleet for you, great at fixing, bad at maintenance, take I think Mariner had. But yeah, going back to the scene by scene, I don't know how much I have to say too much. This one really was a lot of higher up topics. The kind of high scale, high view. What am I looking for? What's the phrase I'm looking for? Big picture? I don't know, something. I did though, it's a very well written episode. Just even demonstrating, I love Mariner as a lieutenant. And just what they bring, Freeman has the great example of, yes, you are better. You are kind of more Starfleet. You are taking this responsibility, but you did still steal a pad from me to peek at classified information about a crewman, which is probably a crime at that. And yeah, so you saw the crewmen really wish they wouldn't have seen that, because they don't want people knowing that they're a demigod. Which, speaking of, I'll have to remember when we get to it in my TOS watch-along. I could have sworn all the gods but Apollo died. They might have just left, though. I thought they had died or faded away because humans didn't worship them anymore or something like that. It has been a while. And I was trying to work out if their grandfather was Zeus. Yeah, could be Kirk times, but that is kind of pushing it a little bit, I think. 120 years. I mean, I guess Zeus doesn't age like a normal person, but he, if he died by the time of that Return of the Arconians, I think it's called, he has to have had a kid by at least that point. Moving forward, don't have too much to say. I think we've had these action figures in previous episodes. In fact, if I remember rightly, that's Captain Archer. David C., welcome. Thank you for the roll of 3D printer filament that you've donated. Happy to be back for a live review. Good to see you. Let's celebrate their third super on a live stream. David C., according to YouTube, this is your third donation. I don't know what YouTube's been drinking, but it's certainly stronger than this vegan eggnog. Yeah. Glad you came on. I think that the highlight of the season, easily. I'm sure there's 1 or 2 episodes. I might look after this. There's 1 or 2 episodes that kind of move things forward. That's right, the stuff in 1 and 2 with Tindy. You knew that was kind of end, but I did like a lot of the stuff that we had with Tindy at the start. But yeah, no, it was such a breath of fresh air to see them actually address the Boimler plotline. I'm like, oh, finally, movement. We're moving forward. You want to bet that the end of this season, does it have Boimler shaving his beard off is some sort of recognition that he should just be himself? I have kind of realized it is, and the characters point out, I think it's basically the same problem he has always had of chasing that captaincy and that promotion when all he really needs to do is just be himself. I appreciate that he's no longer a punching bag character. I was never a huge fan, especially like season 2 or 3 when it gone on a lot, that Boimler was a genuinely good officer who, like, anytime a superior happened to be looking, the show went out of its way to stab him in the foot. But I think the fact that he's got the appreciation of his peers and he's got the commanders being like, no, dude, you're a great officer, just be yourself, is really helping. But I think we had Boimler kind of lose a lot of that. He got the confidence in himself, and then he was worried about the safety of his team. And like, well, how can I tell these ensigns, like, what to do? Like, what makes me better than them? So I do think the introduction of the Mirror Universe Boimler is a good way to kind of kickstart some of these fears. It might have been nice to see Boimler transition into something like, well, I'm responsible for lives. Like maybe he even loses an officer on an away mission or something. In a way that's like, totally no one could have avoided it. He's not in trouble, but it really affects him. Because I think not necessarily nervous, but sort of skittish, manic aspect to Boimler is pretty core to how he is as a character, especially in a comedy. I don't think you could lose that until, like, maybe the very end when you're wrapping up your show. But even then, I think there's value in having someone who's more of a skittish captain, but still capable. He's like, yes, I'm afraid. I don't think we've had that before. A captain who kind of shows their crew that they are shaken by some of the stuff that happens, but you can still power through that. I think that would be a very interesting captain to have. Or just leader, because, we're so used to the Picard or Kirk, like, oh, crew can't show any sign of weakness, even to the point of being like an active security threat. Like, when Kirk splits in two, and you have, like, good Kirk and evil Kirk, good Kirk is like, oh, well, we can't tell the crew that I have a murderous, rapist, evil clone of myself going around the ship. They'll just have to give him full authority. And I think Picard has another one where his mind's taken over or something, but it's always real frustrating to see. I'm like, no, I'd love to see a Boimler captain, A Boimler with the experience to know he can get through, but who's still, he's not unmovable. Not much to say about here. It is nice to see the old hallway sets. A little concerning that Mariner would wait 30 minutes to check on, I guess they did say teenager, but still like the diplomat's son. Better that he was locked in his room, but, I've also just realized, what's her name? Ollie, there we go. What actually happened is she found the crime scene, hid the monitor, and then came to Mariner. That took evidently about half an hour. But because she has this tricorder, I have to imagine she found the murder scene, hid the monitor, went and solved this, like, fundamental tricorder problem, and then came back to demonstrate it. Maybe she was doing that beforehand, but, yeah. Also, I think Wesley did that. So, Talin, I don't know what you're talking about fundamental problem. Or was it... Okay, David C. Did Wesley build a tiny tractor beam? Because he built a tiny force field. It's the one where everyone got drunk. It's the Naked Now, or Naked Time, whichever is not TOS. No, Naked Time is this show. It's the one they all get drunk. I think Wesley builds a tiny force field. No, a tiny tractor beam, and then he turns the tractor beam into a force field. Because I distinctly remember the shot where Geordi walks into the room and he's like moving something around with like this board he's holding. I'm pretty sure it's a tractor beam. Yeah, not too much to say. Again, the plot is very basic because the plot is not the focus of the episode. I don't know. And now I'm out of eggnog, so the stream goes until my voice goes again. Yeah, not too much to say. I mean, again, this is what I think of as Lower Decks as a comedy now. Man, I had a great frame and I've lost it. It's no longer like a laugh out loud funny thing. I mean, every now and then there's a joke that'll get you, but TNG also has jokes that'll get you. That's not a criticism, of course. I think it's good for it. But you get a lot of these more lighthearted scenes of the traditional interrogation taken to the extreme, where they're way too into it. It's the comedy, but not at the expense of, the realism of the universe and the greater Star Trek world, which is what I've been critiquing some of the previous episodes for not doing. I mean, especially knowing what we do, that she's afraid she'll be blamed for the crime scene, it absolutely makes sense that she would go way hard into bad cop and just try and frame anybody for the supposed murder. Moving on. By the way, I did find it a little weird that apparently the alternate Cerritos is, like, further ahead in time, or things are happening out of order, but they've already done things that our Cerritos crew is going to do. I don't know. It's entirely possible, but from the episode, I kind of got the implication that Boimler is essentially reading about the missions they've already gone on. And this is a normal thing, which felt a little bit weird, but it's entirely possible. I mean, it's another universe. Not too much, again. I did like the battle sequence, again. Just, it's very simple, but just having the photonic life forms doing random photonic things. Having people with these lame powers that still very much in the Star Trek world, of course, we have. I mean, like, someone's grandfather being Zeus has been in Star Trek since, like, season 2 or 3 of the original. That's been possible. But yeah, I did like just that aspect of this episode of exploring the non-humanoid thing. Oh, actually, you know what? This is one that made me laugh a bit, is Ransom's narration over this of like, no, it's just a bigger square and a bigger sphere. They have no creativity. There you go. That was my laugh out loud chuckle, we'll call it. And then I think the only other thing I note I want to say, what they call this little thing, I want to say Squircle, because that is how you would name it. But they have it like, they have a name that's basically cube. Hang on one second. Yeah, system output is muted. Square in. It was literally the frame I was paused on. So I assume the name is like square circle, so it's square in. Where does sphere come in the name square in? Curve, sphere, circle, round. There's no N to go at the end of that square. That really bothers me, and I don't know why. Like, well, not I know why, but I don't know why they wrote that. Because it's supposed to be some combination of the two of them, right? But they just named it square. Square in, radius, curvature, pi, square, n. I have no idea. I also can't tell if chat broke because the message thing went up like there was a message and I didn't see a message. So let me try and fix that. I think, well, I closed the stream. So hopefully, I'm pretty sure I'm still live, but I closed the streaming dashboard. And I do appear to still be live. I'm going to assume that nothing cut out. Yeah, as I said, basic Romeo and Juliet. It was pretty obvious, but I don't... It's fine. Oh my god, okay, these cube holes, fine. This is almost as bloody as, like, the protostar. Good lord, the scene on the right looks like a bloodbath, where the scene on the left is like, yeah, alright, fine, just squares. Yeah, and I think that's the end. It was just a good... It was a good episode. We got to move everyone forward. In fact, that's a weird frame. There we go. It made Mariner look like her younger self. No, I really loved just the dynamic of Mariner essentially being what Ransom was to her. Because she's now, of course, very friendly with Ransom. Like, they very much get along. And I think Lower Decks will be an interesting show to revisit to kind of look at Ransom through the eyes of what Mariner's now doing. It's just very much you can see Mariner go through like, yeah, I get it, you know? Like, Ransom, I'm sorry, I understand. And I mean, kind of, she's also falling into some of the same pitfalls as Ransom, though, where Ransom was very much trying to improve Mariner in a very Ransom way. But Mariner is trying to do it in a very Mariner way. And I do like the end of the episode got the resolution to like, no, like I can still help you, but you are your own person. You're not just me. I almost wonder if Lower Decks got on, I would be interested in a flashback sequence to see like Ensign Ransom, who, was similar to a Mariner. You know, I'd expect maybe more of a, like a pop culture Kirk vibe, or how Picard is described when he's young. Like, essentially a Boimler character who's really chasing for that, like, rank and that promotion, except he's also, like, arrogant as hell and cocky and, you know, just thinking he deserves it from day one. I like to think that Ransom would have been like that as an ensign, and he had his own probably legacy character, the way Lower Decks works, kind of get him out of it. There's just this long line that goes all the way back to Zephram Cochrane, that of, yeah, like people just teaching each other how to be good lieutenants. But yeah, I think I will wrap it up after that. I really hope these final few episodes are a lot like this. I'd hazard a guess we'll get something a little more filler, hopefully still moving arcs, but then we'll move into some sort of two-part or loose two-part to wrap up everyone's arcs. Should get at least a decent wrap-up to the season. Lower Decks had a lot more warning. They were canceled than Discovery did. However, being animated, it is a little harder, not just a little, it's harder to change these things. Discovery got a bunch of money to, you know, film an extra scene. I'm sure Lower Decks could have gotten extra money to film extra animation things. It wouldn't be surprising to see a longer final episode. But Probably not too long, still sub half hour. But yeah, I have confidence. This was a real return to form to me. And yeah, I will say thank you all very much for watching. Oh, wait, David, see? They should make a Zephyr Cochrane animated show. I don't know. We're getting, actually, there is news. Have you heard? Paramount has got, loads of Star Trek movies in the works. Star Trek 4 for the Kelvin people. They've got, they've obviously Section 31. I'm pretty sure these are two different movies, but they have a, prequel Kelvin universe movie, which doesn't really make sense, but I will not complain if Paramount essentially confirms that those were always two separate universes, not a universe created by time travel. But a third movie I believe they have is a Star Trek origin story movie that sounds, it's the Star Trek origin story, and the descriptions, I don't have it in front of me. You know what? Let me try and get this. Star Trek origin movie. Because the summary, not UAI, untitled Star Trek movie origin, which they announced as part of the 2026 slate. There's a brief description. Yada yada. A prequel focusing on humanity's early contact with aliens and the formation of the Federation, which obviously is just Enterprise. And it will be set mostly on Earth, which is very interesting for a movie. The film is intended as an origin story for the main timeline of the Star Trek franchise, rather than the alternate Kelvin timeline. You'd love an origin movie. I have mixed feelings. Now, I want to fully acknowledge that I loved the Orville, and I had absolutely... I did not believe the Orville but Star Trek would work, and we are reviewing Lower Decks, one of the strongest... No, Prodigy might give it a run, but, one of the strongest modern Star Treks, just one of the strongest Star Treks in general that is a comedy. I'm skeptical because that is just Enterprise. As a movie, I feel like you might just be stepping on Enterprise's toes. As a movie, I'm a little unsure of what the Star Trek origin will be. If it's just after Zek from Cochrane, that doesn't sound right. I should at least try and have the faith that, they won't throw a blowtorch into Star Trek canon. But, before Enterprise, we didn't really have early contact with aliens, Vulcans excluded. I guess Denobulans, but I don't know, what's the movie? I don't know what the movie is yet. And I know Enterprise, they really wanted season 1 of Enterprise to not have a single alien besides, the Vulcans. They wanted season 1 to be set entirely on Earth. And I think the ending of season 1 would have been building the Enterprise, and then season 2, the ending would have been the first contact out there in space. They wanted a very slow burn. I don't know. I just feel like a early logistics of this Star Trek origin set on Earth, dealing with early contact with aliens and the formation of the Federation. That feels like something that needs time. That feels like a show. That doesn't feel like something that gets wrapped up in 2 to 3 hours. It could just be a more focused, specific first contact. It could be fleshing out, the early deals with humanity and the Vulcans, which would maybe put it more towards Cochrane. I don't think you could do the formation of the Federation, because Enterprise covered that. And, Enterprise needed more than its 4 seasons to cover that. Enterprise needed, 3 more seasons to cover that. It took 4 seasons for Enterprise to actually have the founding members get together on a joint mission, and half them wanted to stab each other. I think, in fact, Archer cut off someone's antenna in that mission. So I hope they don't rush it. I could see it being rushed. I can see all the problems. I can see it disrespecting Enterprise. I can see it burning canon to the ground. But there are plenty of stories that you could absolutely tell there. You could tell something about, you could tell the story with Denobula. I don't know, they're a little friendly. You'd want someone like the Vulcans, really. Enterprise Vulcans, who are friendly. You know, they're not going to go to war with us, but they're like pretentious pricks. And, you know, they're certainly, they're only really going to help us. So they're going to help you just enough that you know, just enough to the point where you can't really solve the problem. So you get super annoyed. But we'll see. I mean, I need way more detail before I judge it. It's just Star Trek in movies have not had a good track record. At this point, really, any new Star Trek thing announced, I'm extremely oh no about, because, to be honest, for me, so much of it had been a flop. Mostly older stuff, you know, older Discovery, but we just got Section 31, which could surprise everyone, even though it won't. In fact, that comes out January. I need to get thumbnails for it. But yeah, just to check, so we have the Origin movie, we have Star Trek 4, they're apparently still working, they're hiring people, plenty of the cast seems committed. It looks like the Origin movie and the prequel movie might be the same thing, but I don't know. Paramount is really seeming to move away from Star Trek as a show and into Star Trek as a movie franchise. And while there are certainly movies that can be told in stories that can be told in movie format, I really feel like Star Trek is a series that benefits from the depth of a show. Like, to me, what sets Star Trek and Star Wars apart isn't the philosophy. It isn't the war versus the Trek. It is that Star Trek as primarily a show, whereas Star Wars is primarily, you know, the 9 movies. I know Star Wars fans are going to get picky, but kind of like the main core of each franchise. Because let's be honest, Star Trek has loads of EU canon we could get into. Star Trek has so much depth. Star Trek has 1,000-year history of like 5 races plus some. And there's so, like, just think of the Klingon arc in the Next Generation alone, let alone Next Generation and Deep Space Nine. You just can't get something like that in Star Wars unless you go into either the shows or the books. And when you do, my uncle's real into them, everything he's told me, the Star Wars EU, which is why I understand it, Star Wars fans really think a lot of the great stuff is basically Star Trek. It's like, hey, we've defeated the Empire, and now we have to figure out how to rebuild the Galactic Republic, except nobody trusts the Galactic Republic, and rightfully so, because last time, like, someone took it over and turned it to the Empire. So how do we build a republic that people have faith in and that can't be abused in the future? Brilliant! That's an amazing setup, and it's a setup that needed, like, many books. So I'm just a little, like, I think a lot of the Star Trek movies that work really only do because they can leverage the weight of the entire, like, 7 series before them. Would First Contact really have been as good of a movie, or The Voyage Home, you know, if we hadn't already known Picard and Data, or Khan, or Spock, or Kirk even? Like, without the Next Generation, First Contact can't have the Picard was assimilated plotline. It can't have, you know, the emotion ship plotline. And that's basically, like, its 2 big things. Like, or if it did, you know, you wouldn't have the emotional connection to the character. You'd basically have to present that as backstory early on. So we'll see. Paramount needs Lower Decks. I hope that Skydance will push TP, have more seasons of Lower Decks. I could see Lower Decks being a show that in like 10 years gets some sort of sequel. I'd be surprised at more Lower Decks soon, though. I mean, we'll see how things go, but I think they've closed it down. I I just don't think I've ever heard of a show that's been canceled then brought back like that. But we'll see. I thought until this episode, Lower Decks had reached its natural end, but now I think you could get a season out of that Ollie stuff. But I think Star Trek needs more shows. There are absolutely movies you can tell. I mean, the Kelvin timeline is telling a story through a series of movies. But that's what you need, that depth. Like 2 to 3 hours isn't really enough to tell most Star Trek stories. And the ones you can tell have to rely on the shows and context we already have from there. Like a Discovery movie that deals with Calypso could work, because we already know about Discovery and Calypso and this crew and yada yada, and there's room to more properly close off loose ends there. I know I've said this before, but I really feel that Discovery was a massive misstep. Discovery 1 and 2 are, the seasons are god-awful. 3, 4, and 5, to varying successes, I don't have a problem with. I'd like them. I've said before, when I did my poorly explained, is that what I call them, of season 3, I actually couldn't get through it. I really like season 3, but I just couldn't get through it the second time. I think perhaps knowing some of the falterings of the endpoints, especially that damn treaty. Hi, I'm the Federation's major enemy. I propose a complete military alliance, a dissolution of slavery in the galaxy, and finally a start to stability to end the 100 years of, we've been unstable for 100 years and the galaxy can't progress. I want us to have future. All you have to do, I've already arranged this, I've got my government behind this, I've pulled all the favors, all you have to do is acknowledge capitalism under the right circumstances can work, which of course you already know, because everyone but Earth has some form of capitalism. They've got money, you've got the Bank of Bullion. No. And I want you to step down and replace someone else. Like, God, God, it was bad. But I've never rewatched seasons 4 and 5. Yeah, I'm the sucker for First Contact stories. I doubt season 4 would be real bad. But no, I think season 5 was a bit of a return to what didn't really work. I had faith, so much faith we learned. I think it's why I'm wary of all these movies now. And then we got Section 31. I'm like, In Stranger Worlds, everyone loves Stranger Worlds, but it genuinely hits a knockout as much as it pulls something out of season 2 of Discovery. It's for every Paraspora, there is a Vulcan in Strange New Worlds. There's a Spock. There's a whatever, T'Pring, I think it's called. Yeah, I really, with a modern Star Trek show, need to see it before I can be like, okay, yeah, you're doing good. But yeah, we'll see how things go. And we'll see Star Trek as a movie franchise. I don't think it'll work, but hey, we'll see. I just think at best you'll get the Kelvin stuff, which is, if you're not building off a foundation of a show, is going to be, decent or good movies that don't really have that Star Trek feel, because I think so much of the Star Trek feel is the depth of the universe, and I feel it's the best Star Trek stories have depth. But who knows? A lot of great episodes are also one-offs. The next episode of my wife's and I watch along is Half a Life, which, I mean, I don't see any reason you couldn't tell Half a Life is a movie. It's kind of nice to know Roxana. You don't have to know Roxana. You really just need to kind of have a passing knowledge of the Federation and what it does. But that's it. But then I guess the question is, why is it a Star Trek movie in the first place? So I don't know. We will see. It really just depends on the story, I guess, in the end of the day. And the Star Trek franchise just doesn't have enough faith in me to go, yes, you've picked a great person every time. But it absolutely doesn't have such a distrust that I don't think it will ever pick a good one. I mean, even Section 31, it's not going to be good, But, like, I still acknowledge as a possibility and go, you know what? This doesn't really look like Star Trek, but somehow you pulled it off, and that's a Star Trek story. But we'll see. The Klingons should never sing K-pop. I'm sorry, Dustin. I think if you pull in enough legwork and you can justify something in the plot, you can make basically anything happen. And let me tell you, Subspace Rhapsody absolutely justified that. That was like a highlight of the episode. My wife loves that bit. I think I called them over to show them the K-pop bit specifically. And it's the best thing they've ever seen as far as they're concerned. So normally I'd probably agree with you, but in the context of Subspace Rhapsody, you know, justifying it in the plot, here's a shout out if you want to, foreshadowing if you want the Doctor Who reviews. We are absolutely, in the next few seasons, getting a Doctor Who musical. This is not confirmed, but, like, there's no way we're not. I'm predicting with that one that I'm really not going to like it because they won't have done what Subspace Rhapsody does and justify it in the plot. Rather, Klingons sing killing, traditional music, war, and bar song. Yeah, but Subspace Rhapsody was making the extraordinarily unlikely likely by manipulating, like, quantum fields or whatever. And the most unlikely genre of music for Klingons is K-pop. And the resolution is that they've made the event so unlikely that the field collapses or whatever. So, if anything, it's the most sensible thing to happen in the plot is K-pop. But, you know, different taste. I get some people just are against musicals seemingly on principle, which I don't understand how you can see Subspace Rhapsody and go, it's a musical, so I don't like it. But hey, you know, you go ahead. Yeah, no, musicals, it's just how you do it, you know, how you do it. I'll ramble for like 30 seconds. I think that's the delay on the chat. But as I said, I was going to wrap it up a little earlier ago. We are way off topic, which isn't a bad thing. But if no one else has anything they want to talk about, I will probably wrap it up tomorrow. I haven't scheduled the stream yet, but we have Doctor Who's The Christmas Invasion. We are starting season 3 with David Tennant and Angela Freeman as Martha Jones, although, of course, the Christmas Invasion is where we introduce Catherine Tate's Donna Noble. That's right, I know all the actors' names. That should be fun. You know, that's a good episode. Not Christmas Invasion. Did I say Christmas Invasion? I meant The Runaway Bride. Season 3's opener with Donna and the Doctor and whoever the hell is the villain? Oh, yeah, the Rachnos, the spider people. Pike singing, I am Captain Pike of the USS Enterprise would be fun to hear. Well, I am Captain Pike of the USS Enterprise. God, that was a missed opportunity. You know what? It's a great episode, but God, that you're right. That's a missed opportunity. I am Captain Christopher Pike of the USS. And if you don't know what we're referencing, is it the Captain? I'm gonna put it in the chat. Star Trek, the Captain Picard song. I think is what it's called. And no AI. I really need to drop Google because it keeps generating AI responses, which is basically throwing a water bottle down the drain every time you generate a response, not to mention the electricity costs. Is this it? I think it's it. Yeah. Here you go. If you don't know, God, YouTube is 18 years old. 2006, OG YouTube, the Captain Picard song. Yeah, I think this should have been in this should have been the credits. Instead of whatever music they play over the credits, is you do a version of this with Anson Mount. I am Captain Christopher Pike of the USS Enterprise. Come on, remix that. So maybe I'll do it. I'll remix that, put it on YouTube. But yeah, I will say God, why is YouTube 18 years old now? Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you next time!